اجعله الداعي إلى كتابك والقائم بدينك. استخلفه في الأرض كما استخلفت الذين من قبله. مكن له دينه الذي ارتضيته له. أبدله من بعد خوفه أمنا. يعبدك لا يشرك بك شيئا. اللهم أعزه وأعزز به، وانصره وانتصر به، وانصره نصرا عزيزا، وافتح له فتحا يسيرا، واجعل له من لدنك سلطانا نصيرا. اللهم أظهر به دينك وسنة نبيك حتى لا يستخفي بشيء من الحق مخافة أحد من الخلق. اللهم إنا نرغب إليك في دولة كريمة تعز بها الإسلام وأهله، وتذل بها النفاق وأهله، وتجعلنا فيها من الدعاة إلى طاعتك والقادة إلى سبيلك، وترزقنا بها كرامة الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم ما عرفتنا من الحق فحملنا، وما غصرنا عنه فبلغنا. اللهم المم به شعثنا، واشعب به صدعنا، وارتق به فتقنا، وكثر به قلتنا، وأعزز به ذلتنا، وأغن به عائلنا، واغض به عن مغرمنا، واجبر به فقرنا، وسد به خلتنا، ويسر به عسرنا، وبيض به وجوهنا، وفك به أسرنا، وأنجح به طلبتنا، وأنجز به مواعيدنا، واستجب به دعوتنا، وأعطنا به سؤلنا، وبلغنا به من الدنيا والآخرة آمالنا، وأعطنا به فوق رغبتنا يا خير المسؤولين وأوسع المعطين. اشف به صدورنا، واذهب به غيظ قلوبنا، واهدنا به لما اختلف فيه من الحق بإذنك، إنك تهدي من تشاء إلى صراط مستقيم. وانصرنا به على عدوك وعدونا إله الحق. آمين. اللهم إنا نشكو إليك فقد نبينا صلواتك عليه وآله، وغيبة ولينا، وكثرة عدونا، وقلة عددنا، وشدة الفتن بنا، وتظاهر الزمان علينا. فصل على محمد وآله، وعنا على ذلك بفتح منك تعجله، وبضر تكشفه، ونصر تعزه وسلطان حق تظهره ورحمة منك تجللنا وعافية منك تلبسنا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.
علي ولي الله يا مولاي، علي ولي الله يا مولاي، علي ولي الله يا مولاي، علي ولي الله يا مولاي. نادي عليا مظهر العجائب، نادي عليا مظهر العجائب، تجده عونا لك في النوائب، تجده عونا لك في النوائب. كل هم وغم سينجلي، كل هم وغم سينجلي بعظمتك يا الله، بنبوتك يا محمد، بولايتك يا علي 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 يا علي. علي حبه جنة، قسم النار والجنة، وصي المصطفى حقا، إمام الإنس والجنة. علي حبه جنة، قسم النار والجنة، وصي المصطفى حقا، إمام الإنس والجنة.
علی همای رحمت تو چه آیتی خدا را که به ما سوا فکندی همه سایه هما را.
علی همای رحمت تو چه آیتی خدا را که به ما سوا فکندی همه سایه هما را. دل اگر خدا شناسی همه در رخ علی بین، به علی شناختم من به خدا قسم خدا را، به علی شناختم من به خدا قسم خدا را.
به جز از علی که آرد پسری ابو.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your amal and your efforts in the month of Ramadan. Just once again, I would like to invite everyone, every community member to join us in a collaboration between our communities and share your videos of yourself, your children, your family members. This is not just limited to children, but of course we want to encourage their participation to record a video of their short recitation of Quran, dua, supplication. Even if you want to congratulate month of Ramadan with your family, just with following the Islamic etiquette and making sure that the video quality is good and the audio is also good. So we can use these videos, and after editing them, we can share them, inshallah, with the community and broadcast them in our programs. The platform you can upload your videos is socalramadan.com. SoCal Ramadan is spelled Ramadan, and socalramadan.com. You can upload your videos. And if you have any feedback, even if you don't have any video, but you have feedback regarding our programs, please go to the same website and you can also post your feedback. We'd appreciate it. Inshallah, we will implement those feedbacks that are constructive and are helpful, definitely. So once again, I would like to encourage everyone to share videos of their children, themselves, their family members, reciting Quran, reciting supplication, but short, maybe a minute or 2 or 3 minutes maximum, and then upload them to socalramadan.com. And after, inshallah, receiving these videos, we will edit them and we will use them during our Ramadan live program every night, inshallah. Thank you so much for paying attention and tuning in to our programs. And please convey this message and share this message with the rest of the community, that hopefully we can have, inshallah, participation of everyone in the community. Jazakumullah khair. Ramadan once again Mubarak. Keep us in your du'as and prayers. And now, inshallah, we will go and pay attention and listen to our respected guest speech, respected guest scholar speech, Hujjatul Islam al-Muslimin, Sayyid Sulaiman Hassan. Thank you so much for your time. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم إلى قيام يوم الدين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Today, inshallah, we will continue our discussion of jihadun nafs, the struggle against the low desires of our own soul, and the struggle to improve our character and our behavior so that we can represent the greatest teachings of Islam and the practice of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad alayhimus salatu wassalam. I briefly mentioned a wasiyah of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salatu wassalam, which it is narrated he gave to his son Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya. And Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya was, of course, the brother of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein alayhim as-salatu was-salam, but he was not a son of Lady Fatima salamullahi alayha. So he considered himself to be a supporter and a worker for the imamate of Imam Ali, Imam Hassan, and Imam Hussein alayhim as-salatu was-salam. In the battle of Siffin, he fought courageously for the defense of Imam Ali alayhi salam. He was a companion of Imam Hassan alayhi salam during his imamat, and he was the eyes and ears of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam in Hijaz during the imamat of Imam Hussein. So Muhammad ibn al-Hanafiya in this wasiyah is being instructed by Imam Ali that, remember, faith is not something that is in your heart or in your mind alone. It is something that is in every organ and every limb of your body. And if we want to know how to preserve our faith and how to strengthen and deepen our faith, then sometimes it's not that we need to learn more facts. It's not that we need to say things or learn a dhikr or recite, but it is that we need to practice the utilization of iman by our limbs. And as our body becomes accustomed to living a life of faith, then our faith becomes more deep and more safe. So, for example, the Imam says that it will be uh, a a situation that will sometimes arise for you that you will see the message of Allah mocked. And when you see that, then you have to إذا سمعتم آيات الله يكفر بها ويستهزأ بها. When you see people making fun of the ayat of Allah, the signs of Allah in the Quran or in creation, when people mock creation, فلا تقعدوا معهم حتى يخوضوا في حديث غيره. Then don't sit in that company. And of course, in the time of the Prophet, that was often people who were unbelievers, and they would speak sarcastically, dismissively, condescendingly about the believers, say things like they are poor, they are quote unquote low class, they are former slaves, and things like that. Or it would be gatherings of hip who would pretend to do one thing but not actually believe and not actually practice the faith. And so the Muslims are told to separate themselves from those gatherings. And in our time, we have to also ensure that we are separate from those people and those gatherings where the message of Islam, the message of Allah is not taken seriously, and where it might be treated as an object of ridicule or an object of uh, of superstition. Now, hopefully, most of us we don't actually have friends or in-person associates where that is the case. But much of society is built on the idea that religion and religious people and religious belief is something funny or something to be mocked. And if we listen to that media, if we are influenced by those movies, those television shows, those songs, and all of the other avenues that people speak in a way that is dismissive or mocking of religion, then we are with them in that gathering. So that applies to our ears. And then the Imam quotes another verse. This previous verse talks about what we should not listen to. The next verse talks about what we should listen to. فَبَشِّرْ عِبَادٍ. Give good tidings, Allah says, to my servants. الَّذِينَ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقَوْلَ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ أَحْسَنَهُ. Those who listen to what is said, and then they follow the best of what they hear, meaning that they keep an open mind, they listen to different perspectives, and then they try to follow not that which is in their personal interest, not that which reinforces their prior prejudices, but that which is actually most in line with their intellect and with their conscience. The ahsan, the best, is that which is better. Similarly, the Imam quotes the Quran where Allah says, وَإِذَا مَرُّوا بِاللَّغْوِ مَرُّوا كِرَامًا. When they pass by what is vain, without benefit, people are talking and wasting their time about trivia, about meaningless topics, just to keep a conversation going. They pass by, they don't join that conversation and waste their own time. Marru kirama. They pass by, but with dignity, not arrogantly and not looking down on people, but they also don't join in something that is of no point. Now, laghu means something that is vain and without point. We said earlier that that doesn't mean that you can't enjoy yourself. If you want to play a game of trivia with your friends or family, if you want to have some lighthearted conversation and joke or have fun, Imam Ali alayhi salam, and similarly our other Imams, they have said that you should give yourself a chance every day for leisure, for relaxation. The conditions are فيما يحل ويجمل. It should be halal and it should be something that is aesthetic, that is dignified, that is worthy of you. So as long as your entertainment is something that brings a little bit of peace and relaxation and enjoyment to you, and it is halal and it is something dignified, then it's not laghu, because it's not without benefit. It has a benefit. It's giving you sort of a recharge that you can then benefit from in the rest of your day. So there's nothing wrong with relaxation and there's nothing wrong with leisure. But be careful that you don't get involved in what is lagh, what is pointless. And then the Imam talks about our eyes. قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُمْ. And these are, of course, the verses of Surah An-Nur that talk about modesty. And this is something that is the basis of the Islamic concept of hijab. Hijab is not used in the Quran in the way that you and I customarily use it. What is mentioned in the Quran in Surah An-Nur is that men and women are both obligated to be modest and chaste. Both men and women should live in a way that their eyes and their thoughts are modest. And the way that modesty is best implemented in society requires one set of laws for men and one set of laws for women. They are complementary, meaning they work together. They are trying to accomplish the same purpose, which is to ensure that both men and women can live a dignified life and a pure life. So we shouldn't focus on the obligations of just, for example, women to dress in a certain way. The obligation to live chastely, to speak chastely, to use your eyes chastely is equally applicable to men and women, the moral and that legal obligation. And in fact, the Quran begins by addressing the believing men. قُلْ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ يَغُضُّوا مِنْ أَبْصَارِهِمْ وَيَحْفَظُوا فُرُوجَهُم. So the role of men in hijab, in the sense of chastity and iffa, is just as important as the role of women, because both work together for the good of society. That is a part of the way that faith is to be demonstrated within our lives. And then, of course, there is the obligation of our tongues. وَقُولُوا آمَنَّا بِالَّذِي أُنزِلَ إِلَيْنَا. Imam Ali alayhi salam in this wasiyah quotes the verse of Quran in Surah Al-Ankabut. Say, we believe in what has been revealed to us. Affirm your belief with your tongues and not just in your heart. وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا. And speak well and kindly when you are addressing people, and other instructions that are found for the tongue. So let us summarize, and a summary is found in a hadith from Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. And this is kind of a summary of what it means for a person to feel responsible with each and every one of our limbs and each and every one of the faculties of our body and our soul, to express our faith, to live in a way that is compatible with our faith. Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam says, لَيْسَ لَكَ أَن تَتَكَلَّمَ بِمَا شِئْتَ. You don't have the right to say what you want. لأن الله يقول, because Allah says, وَلَا تَقْفُ مَا لَيْسَ لَكَ بِهِ عِلْمٍ. Don't go after and pursue that which you don't have knowledge of. This is a very big contrast with our culture, where people think, well, everybody has a right to an opinion. I have freedom of speech. In Islam, every freedom, every right comes with a responsibility. I don't have a right to say whatever I want, as the Imam says, لَيْسَ لَكَ أَن تَتَكَلَّمَ بِمَا شِئْتَ. You don't have a right to say, because you are answerable for the words that come out of your mouth and the effect that those words have on somebody else. So let's say, for example, that I have a friend and I don't think that they're going to be able to pass their test. If my saying so is going to discourage them and make them even less likely, then that honest opinion that I'm sharing with them might be unkind. And therefore, it might be something that Islam tells us to avoid. However, if my telling them that will have a constructive role to play by making them study harder, by helping them see their own weaknesses, then it might be something good for me to say, I just have to make sure that I say it in a way that has that positive effect and not the negative effect. So just because I think it, just because it's true, doesn't mean I have the right to say it. And it doesn't mean I have the right to say it however I want. I don't have a right to an opinion, and I don't have a right to say what I want. I have a responsibility to say what is good and what is appropriate, what is worthy. I have a responsibility to form my opinion after I have done research and I know that what I am going to consider to be true is actually true. Otherwise, my obligation is to say, I don't have an opinion, I don't know enough. Allah knows better. Those to whom Allah has given knowledge, they know better. And then the Imam continues, وَلَيْسَ لَكَ أَن تَسْمَعَ مَا شِئْتَ. You also don't have the right to listen to whatever you want. لأن الله عز وجل يقول, because Allah says, إِنَّ السَّمْعَ وَالْبَصَرَ وَالْفُؤَادَ كُلُّ أُولَٰئِكَ كَانَ عَنْهُ مَسْئُولًا. Indeed, your hearing and your sight and your heart, a person will be asked about all of those things. So because we are responsible, we will be asked. I can't just say that whatever I want to listen to or look at or think about, I have that right. Those actions that I do will affect what my goals in life are. They will affect what I am able to do. You've ever heard the statement that if you see something really gross or disgusting, I wish I could unsee that, or I'll never be able to take that image out of my mind. Well, that is a reality. Once I listen to something, once I see something, then that becomes a part of who I am. And so I should do the best that I can to ensure that the images that come into my mind from my senses, from my eyes, from my ears, from my other senses, which will form the basis of my thoughts, the basis of my imagination, the basis of my goals in life, those are healthy and constructive and worthy images and pictures that come into my mind. The next hadith that I would like to look at is one that I am sure many of you have heard of and some of you may have read. This is a hadith that talks about some of those rights and responsibilities which every believer should be aware of. And this is narrated from Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. It is known as Risalatul Huquq, the treatise of rights, the book of rights, that is narrated from our fourth Imam. There are a number of different versions. The version that I am going to base this discussion on is the one that is narrated from Shaykh al-Saduq, and this is the most authentically narrated, slightly shorter version of Risalatul Huquq, the Book of Rights, which is narrated from our fourth Imam, Imam Ali ibn al-Husayn Zainul Abidin alayhi salatu wassalam. So this Book of Rights, the Imam explains what are the rights that you and I need to be aware of, that we are responsible for. And I'm not going to deal in detail with the actual rights. The most important part of this book is that the Imam reminds us what we should be thinking about. Once we know that we should be thinking about something, we generally know what those rights are. So for example, the very first right that the Imam mentions, Haqqullahil Akbaru alayk, the biggest right of Allah. So when we talk about rights and responsibilities, the first thing that we should think about is what is the right that Allah has over us. He created us. He is our sustainer. He guided us, gave us every blessing that we have ever received, and gave us much more than we are worthy of. Protected our reputation even when we did evil. Blessed us even when we were not grateful or not worthy of it. The greatest right is the right that we owe to Allah. And if you know that we owe a right to Allah, then you already know what are the things that you owe to Allah. But just for us to read the words of the Imam, Haqqullahil Akbaru alayk, the greatest right of Allah that He has over your shoulders, an ta'budahu wa la tushrika bihi shay'a, that you worship only Allah and that you do not associate any partners with Allah. فَإِذَا فَعَلْتَ ذَلِكَ بِإِخْلَاصٍ. So if you do this sincerely, meaning if you worship Allah sincerely, جَعَلَ لَكَ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ أَنْ يَكْفِيَكَ أَمْرَ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. Allah has obligated Himself, because rights and responsibilities are reciprocal. So when you give Allah your sincere worship, Allah has obligated Himself. Now, He is our Creator. He doesn't have to give us anything back. In fact, our worship of Allah is our due, our debt that we owe Allah. But when Allah has given us a responsibility, He has reciprocally given Himself a responsibility. The Imam says, جَعَلَ لَكَ عَلَى نَفْسِهِ. Allah has obligated Himself أَنْ يَكْفِيَكَ أَمْرَ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ, that He will suffice you and take care of you for all of your needs in this world and in the hereafter, meaning He will give you a good life in this world and He will give you a good life, salvation, in the hereafter. So the first right is the right of Allah, because He is the origin of every other right that we might have. Now, what is the next right that is mentioned? Is it our religious obligations? Is it the obligations that we owe our family, our parents? The Imam says the second thing that he mentions, وَحَقُّ نَفْسِكَ عَلَيْكَ, the right of your own soul. After Allah, the Imam mentions yourself. And we've talked about the fact that jihadun nafs is the struggle to improve our soul, the struggle against dhulm to ourselves, the struggle to be adil. The Imam defines it like this: وَحَقُّ نَفْسِكَ عَلَيْكَ أَن تَسْتَعْمِلَهَا بِطَاعَةِ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ. Your soul has this right on you that you use your soul to obey Allah, because your soul is not your property. Your soul is the property of Allah. Allah has given you this soul, this body, these faculties, these abilities. And when I say you, you are your soul. This is part of the power of the soul that Allah has given us, that I can sit back and I can say, I am these faculties, and this is what I think. So you can analyze yourself. That ability to introspect, that is also a gift Allah has given us. Not that we are separate from our soul in reality. But that identity that you can think about and you are able to introspect about, that is a gift and the property of Allah. And the right of your soul is that you use it for obedience of Allah. And when you use your soul for the obedience, of course, the body is the slave of the soul. The body works according to the direction of our nafs. Now, because there are many rights that the Imam mentions, and my purpose is not to go over the details, but to express the comprehensiveness of the message of the Imams, I am going to focus on what are the various rights that the Imam mentions. So who are the people or the categories that the Imam says have rights upon us? And separately, you can read this Risala, this book of the Imam, to see the details of what each of those rights are. In many cases, they're self-explanatory. You will be able to guess what the obligation involved is, at least in a general sense. But what is important is to remember that this is something that in many cases we don't think about, we should be thinking about. The Imam says these are obligations that we have. So first, Haqqullahil Akbar, the greatest right of Allah. Next was وَحَقُّ نَفْسِكَ, the right of your own soul. Then the Imam says وَحَقُّ اللِّسَانِ, the right of your tongue. إِكْرَامُهُ, you should honor your tongue. This is something that Allah has given you that is immensely powerful and miraculous. The power of speech, the power to express ourselves. It is not part of Islam, but it was part of previous religious teachings to have a fast of silence, a vow of silence, Sawm sukut. And this is a very difficult thing. It's not part of Islam, and so you cannot make an intention as an act of worship that I am going to be silent for a day, but just try it a little bit. try not to communicate. And you'll see that it's very difficult. In some cases, it might be even more difficult than to avoid food and drink. Just like when other people give us the silent treatment, that's very difficult. For us not to be able to express ourselves is very difficult. So we should honor our tongue. وَحَقُّ السَّمْعِ. And then the Imam speaks of the right of our ears, what we should listen to, and the most important thing, tanzihu, to keep our ears clean. Now, there is an interesting difference between our eyes and our ears, of course. Our eyes, we can always close. So if there is something that I should not look at, I can close my eyes even if I am right here. But with my ears, I can't just close my ears. Even if I try to plug my ears, I will still hear things. And that tells us that we need to be perhaps even more careful about what we listen to, because we're not always aware and conscious of the effect that it has upon us. So we have to keep ourselves more distant so that those unworthy sounds, they do not enter into our hearing. That's how the tanzih would work. Then the Imam says, وَحَقُّ الْبَصَرِ, the right of your eyes, should not look at something that is prohibited. وَحَقُّ يَدَيْكِ, the right of your two hands, don't do something that is prohibited. وَحَقُّ رِجْلَيْكِ, the right of your two feet, don't go anywhere that is prohibited. وَحَقُّ بَطْنِكِ, the right of your stomach, the right of what you consume. وَحَقُّ فَرْجِكِ, and the right of your private parts, your chastity. وَحَقُّ الصَّلَاةِ, after the organs, the Imam starts to talk about acts of worship. So Allah, yourself, then your organs, because it is with the organs that you are either going to obey Allah and achieve salvation, or disobey Allah and achieve or be subject to wretchedness and perdition. And then with those organs, having readied them, made them worthy of God's worship, the Imam says that salat has a right. Think of salat as something that has an obligation, or you have an obligation to. Know that this is a visit. Wifadatun ilallahi azza wa jalla. You are speaking to Allah. You are a guest of Allah when you are praying. And the Imam talks about the right of salat and how to do salat properly. I encourage all of us to read the description that the Imam gives of our ibadat. وَحَقُّ الْحَجِّ, the Imam says that there is a right of Hajj. When you go for Hajj, when you perform your ibadat, then think of yourself as fulfilling a right and not as accomplishing something that you deserve praise or credit for. And that keeps us humble. This is also أنها وفادة إلى ربك وفرار إليه من ذنوبك. Hajj is also a visit to Allah, and it is fleeing away from our own sins. وحق الصوم, the right of fasting. And because we are in the month of fasting, I will read the description that the Imam gives. وحق الصوم أن تعلم أنه حجاب ضربه الله عز وجل على لسانك وسمعك وبصرك وبطنك وفرجك يسترك به من النار. Know that fasting is a curtain that Allah has placed over your tongue and over your hearing and over your sight and over your stomach, your consumption, over your private parts. That curtain, the purpose of it, يَسْتُرُكَ بِهِ مِنَ النَّارِ. Allah protects you, covers you with that curtain from the fire. So Allah has given you kind of a protective shield, an invisibility cloak, to compare it to something that many of us may wish we had. Allah gives this to us to protect us from the fire. فَإِن تَرَكْتَ الصَّوْمَ خَرَقْتَ سَتْرَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكَ خَرَقْتَ سِتْرَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكَ. If you don't fast when you are obligated to fast, then you have ripped that protective shield that Allah has put upon you. Imagine that you have, protective covering, uh, personal protective equipment, as they call it, in the face of a pandemic, and then there is a rip in that mask. Whatever the infection is, it can come and it can harm you. So that is a protection that Allah gives us from hellfire. Now, that means two things. Number one, it means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has, through the action of the fast, protected us from being worthy of punishment. The other thing it means is that when we are fasting, we should be careful about our tongue, hearing, and so on, so that we don't disobey Allah. So it's both a call to action, that Allah wants fasting to be a way of protecting all of our limbs from the fire, and it is also a source of strength, a call to action and a source of strength for us. The next right that the Imam mentions is وَحَقُّ الصَّدَقَةِ. Sadaqah is a right. If you have been given plenty by Allah, there are people in the world today and in our own country who do not have a safe place to live. They do not have safe drinking water. They do not have enough to eat. They do not have their basic necessities met. I was not special. Allah didn't owe me to give me all of these things that I enjoy and that I benefit from. So when I give to those who are less fortunate, I shouldn't think that, well, I'm doing a wonderful thing. That is an obligation. Sadaqah has a right upon me. I would rather be in a position where I have more than I need, where I can give back to Allah, than be in a position where I do not have enough for my own needs and I'm not even able to carry out my good intentions to do good for the sake of Allah. So sadaqah is something that we have an obligation towards, and we should feel that we are obligated. And then وَحَقُّ الْهَدِي, when you give a sacrifice, especially in Hajj, when you sacrifice an animal and you distribute the meat of that to your fellow believers and to the needy, then that is also something that you have an obligation towards. So in short, all of the acts of worship that we do, we have an obligation towards them, and we should not feel that these are something that Allah owes us anything for. That is a message of humility and a reminder of the comprehensiveness of our Islamic teaching, and the beautiful way that Imam Zainul Abidin has phrased those obligations is a constant reminder of the ideals that we can aspire to, inshallah, and practice, especially during this month of fasting. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And I think with that, we will move towards the questions. The first question is, a non-Muslim might argue that there are a lot of non-Muslims who do not follow Islamic law, but they are seemingly outwardly very just. How can we explain that? Well, there are different forms of justice and injustice. And the fact that a person is just in one aspect doesn't mean that they are just in all aspects. So for example, I might be very kind to my family, but I might not be kind to my coworkers. There are other people who are very kind to their coworkers or to their friends in school, but they are not kind to their family. They are just in one area, unjust in another area. The message of Islam is that the source of justice and injustice comes from within. So if I am unjust to myself, if I don't follow my own conscience, that will affect my actions in the external world. I might do everything right, but if my conscience is not important to me, if my spiritual life is not important to me, then even if I am a good person, I'm fair to other people, I'm kind, the depth of my actions will not be as much as it would be possible to be if I cared about my conscience. So let me just give an example to make this really clear, an extreme example. Right? There's some people who are always smiling, always very helpful because they're trying to sell you something. If you go to a car dealership, trust me, that car salesperson will be the nicest person you ever met. That doesn't mean they care about you. It means they want to sell you a car. They'll compliment you. They'll tell you you look really nice behind the wheel of the more expensive car. Right? So there are some people who are kind and just because they have a worldly interest. There's other people, it just makes them feel good. And they're not trying to get money for it. They're not trying to sell you something, but they don't feel good if they act in a mean way. So there is a level of justice and a level of goodness that is there. The first kind is very shallow. The second kind is real, it's not shallow, but that person is in the end doing what makes them feel comfortable. And so if their circumstances in life changed, they might somewhat change their behavior because it makes them feel good to be kind. When it doesn't make them feel good, when they feel like they want to get revenge on somebody, maybe then they will do that. So the power of belief, the power of justice that comes from within is that even if you were already doing what is good, it will make it deeper. It will make it more long lasting. It will make it for the sake of Allah. So it becomes a spiritual and not just a material good deed. That's the message of Islam. It comes from the inside. That doesn't mean that a non believer cannot have a clear conscience. We don't know what Allah has taught that person, what information they have. We don't know what Allah is going to hold other people responsible for. But the point is that the conscience is the origin of true justice and injustice. It is said that shaitan is in chains during the month of Ramadan. How come that I still drift in salat? Should I blame my nafs? And how to stay focused in salat? A very good question. In the sermon of the Prophet says, Allah has chained shaitan. So don't undo those chains, or Allah has closed the gates of hell. Don't open those gates yourself. Allah has opened the gates of paradise. Don't close those gates yourself. So what that means is that Allah has given us a head start. But if I decide not to do what is good and to do what is evil, then I will still suffer. And that punishment is still something that I have to fear. In general, in the month of Ramadan, although shaitan is in chains, if we have made a habit of doing bad things, those habits are still going to be there. And that's why we do have to blame our nafs, right? It's kind of like if you train an animal not to go past a certain border, then even if you no longer have the leash on them, they might not go past that border that they're trained not to go past. The leash isn't there, but the training is there. And so because we have not always disobeyed shaitan, even when the leash is taken off, shaitan is no longer there, we still continue to act in those unhealthy patterns. How can you stay focused on salat? The most important thing is to change the way you live your life outside of salat. If you think about Allah, if you do dhikr, if you try to live your life in a way that is pleasing to Allah, if you try to value salat, then you will find it is easier to concentrate in salat. That is why in hadith, if you can't concentrate in prayer, you're encouraged to do the recommended prayers known as nawafil, not encouraged just to keep on repeating the wajib prayer until you can concentrate better, because it's what you do outside of the prayer that helps you focus within the prayer. Will there be other live streamed lectures during the rest of the month? We will have lectures based on the East Coast time before iftar. That might be a little bit early for some of you, but we will be talking about these same ahadith from Wasa'il al-Shi'a. So if you would like to tune in, I can share the information for that. The next question is, can you elaborate on shaitan is changed? Does this mean there is no situation this month where shaitan has any influence on me? No. Shaitan is chained, but the natural weakness that we have already accustomed to, that is still there. That is why we have to do jihad. We have to struggle and work to remove the effect of that poisoning and that harm that we have subjected ourselves to uh, before the month of Ramadan. And if a person chooses evil, then shaitan can be unchained. The gates of paradise can be closed. The gates of hell can be opened again. We have to make sure that we don't do that. Is it okay to delay breaking the fast just to make sure to pray Maghrib Isha? Yes. This is a misconception according to the teachings of Ahlul Bayt. There is actually a recommendation when Maghrib Adhan comes, you have the obligation to break the fast or to do iftar, and you have the obligation to pray. And it is recommended to start with the prayer if you can concentrate and if you're able to, because that allows your prayer to be recited while you're still fasting. This applies, of course, to Maghrib, not necessarily to Isha. But if you have people waiting for you, or if you are weak or tired or impatient, then don't do a prayer that you're not going to concentrate on. Go ahead, break your fast, have a glass of water, a date, for example, or some soup, and then you can pray. But certainly, according to teachings of Ahlul Bayt, there is no reason not to pray first. In fact, it is better, all else being equal. Would the life of another person be considered more important than your own, making it obligatory for you to sacrifice yourself to save somebody else? Well, in the sense that you can't kill somebody else to save yourself, yes. You are not allowed to kill somebody else or cause the death of somebody else to save yourself. But your life belongs to Allah. The life of the other person belongs to Allah. So it's really difficult to say one is more important than the other. In terms of not killing somebody else, of course, because that is an action, you're not allowed to do it. But let's say that you have one life-saving pill, and either you can consume it and save your life, or you can give it to somebody else and save them. It is certainly an act of generosity to give it to somebody else, but saving your own life is wajib. Saving the other person's life is wajib. If you're not able to do both, then you can save whichever one you're able to. They're both obligations, is the bottom line. Can you please describe a generic daily schedule for ibadah, Quran, extra prayers during Ramadan for folks who have full-time jobs? Well, if you have a full-time job, then try to fit ibadah into your schedule and change your schedule so that you can do ibadah. So for example, if you have a commute and you're driving, then have a playlist with a little bit of Quran. So you have some Quran every day, a little bit of dua, maybe a different dua that you can renew your connection to dua. Every so often, there might be an Islamic lecture that you save to your playlist so you can increase your knowledge. But don't listen to a lecture every day, or just Quran every day, or just a dua, because dua meets one spiritual need, Quran meets another spiritual need, lectures meet another spiritual need, right? So when you're working out, I'm not a person who works out, but I believe when you work out, you're supposed to try to balance how you develop your different muscles and make sure that you have a well-balanced regimen. You don't want to just work your biceps and then not work your other muscles. Similarly with your soul, your intellectual, your emotional, your spiritual, all of your needs should be met together. So your commute might be one time when you can fit something in. Also, when you are in your commute, or even if you are at your desk, then if you can do wudu, you can do your recommended prayers while you're walking, while you're driving, and you will just use gestures to bow down for ruku' and for sujood, and you can do a recommended prayer not facing qibla, not standing up and doing ruku' and sujood while you are in motion. You might be washing dishes, or you might be walking or jogging or driving and doing a recommended prayer. So in summary, try to have a comprehensive plan, try to do a little bit of different things, not just what's easy or convenient, and don't overwhelm yourself. When you need a break, Remember, the Prophet said, sleeping is ibadah. وَنَوْمُكُمْ فِيهِ عِبَادَةٌ. You're never going to get credit for sleeping like you will in the month of Ramadan. So don't overwhelm yourself, but try to do a little bit of everything. And inshallah, Allah will accept and bless those efforts. So I think that's all we have time for. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم كن لوليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا